So thank you so much, Shanti, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Good morning.
Yeah. So would you like to say a quick word before we officially start the podcast? Yeah.
I just met Mala literally like a few weeks ago, and she asked me to come and join this panel. Shanti Iyer, I'm currently CIO at DocuSign. I've been there for about 4+ years. And prior to that, I spent a good chunk of 2 decades at Cisco running various roles. I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, thrilled to host you. So thank you so much for joining us today. I would love to have a conversation with you on how you came to be here. Like, what did you do? How did you start? What was your story?
A short summary. Sorry to bore you all, but born and raised in Chennai, India. Grew up with 3 siblings. We were 4 daughters. If you are Indian from the southern part of the region and you have a last name like mine, you know it's a very conservative part of community. And I had a great dad who basically wanted his daughters to fly away and do the things that they can. I was fortunate enough to kind of, in my very early age, leave India and try some things on my own. So I'm a math major, and I worked in India for a small period of time, but then I went to Dubai and worked there in a bank technology division for about 3 years. And I got lucky to go to Dubai because my sister worked for Emirates Airlines, and I got a free ticket first to go see her. And then I landed a job, and that was my first taste of financial freedom. And again, she gave me a free ticket to visit my best friend in Philadelphia back in 1991, I believe, or 92. And I came to visit the US, kind of liked it, and said, okay, I'm going to try and look for a job here. And got one. And in those days, H-1B was fairly easy. It was like less than 2 weeks, I was told, hey, you have your H-1B. So I went from Dubai to India, told my dad, I got a job in the US, and then came here. My first stint was mostly as a consultant. I worked at Applied Materials. It was primarily as an Oracle DBA. That's kind of how I started my career in US. And then I got a job offer from Cisco in those days, and Cisco was doing superbly well under John Chambers. They were splitting stock twice a year. They were like really laying the foundation of networking. And so I was lucky enough to join them early on. I played various roles there at Cisco. One thing I can vouch for is it's a great company with some serious advocates who will shape and grow your career when they spot someone's ambitious, got talent, and can run different roles. I had a lot of such advocates in my career, and that's why I am here.
Wonderful. So tell us more about that. How did you seek out advocates, or did they just find you and just Cisco? I don't think that's happening to all Cisco employees.
I think you have to be early on in my career. You could almost say I learned this a little late, not as early as I would have liked now looking back. We all get a bit comfortable. I mean, you could even say, hey, I spent 20 years at Cisco. Did you get too comfortable in one company? My husband used to tell me that, but then Cisco offered me various roles. At one point, I told my then CIO, I was like 2 levels down or something. She and I had a great relationship. Rebecca Jacoby, she's still my mentor, advocate. I still talk to her quite a bit. I told her, I want your job. She goes, well, you need to run 4 or 5 jobs before you get my job. I said, I'm okay with that. Tell me what I need to do to get your job. So I said, I just look at you, and you really drive the business in a very different way. You don't operate like a very traditional CIO, taking care of laptops and network, etc. You really poke into the business and ask them how to change and help them drive the change. So I told her I want to be a CIO like that. And then she started investing in me. So I think one I would recommend is you have some clarity in your mind, and that takes time. It takes sometimes talking to yourself. But once you have that clarity that this is the path I like, and I look at somebody and I can do that, and then go have the conversation. That's what worked for me.
Amazing. Yeah. I get it. I am a bit like that myself. We're very straightforward and just, either they give you a chance or they don't. You may as well find out by asking. But tell us more about what happened with Cisco over the years, the last 20 years. How did technology evolve? What business changes happen?
Yeah. Cisco was a complex, it was a beast because we sold hardware, we sold software, we sold services. And we acquired a lot of companies we acquired a lot of security companies, a lot of collaboration companies, and then, of course, core network routing, switching kind of companies. So it was about making sure all of them were working in unison. Through all this, the company also tried to transform into a lean manufacturing, like basically making sure that manufacturing was completely run by the contract manufacturing firms. Otherwise, we were running our software on their shop floors. So you could almost say that's the program that I got involved in that changed, one, the trajectory of my career, but most importantly, taught me how to think, act, business first, technology next. Because sometimes we just jump into, okay, we have a software, let's just deploy the software. And a lot of it was about really, truly understanding what the business wants to do and getting deep understanding of that. And then technology can fit. And you have a slew of options, typically, on what technology mix would work well for that problem. But that I learned, in running supply chain IT at Cisco. And then I ran the data program at Cisco. I think the data office was what made me realize the power of having a 360 view of the company. Because once you see the company's data, you really go deep in it, you understand a lot. You understand about your customers. You understand deeply about the products. You actually understand very well about the operating process in the company. If you look at the data, do a deep analysis, you know the discounting behavior. You know how the customers are using the product. You know whether your pricing and packaging is working. So that job made me understand a full 360 of Cisco. Even though I'd spent a lot of years at Cisco prior, I got probably deep in a particular area, but never the breadth. The data job gave me the breadth.
Weren't you ever bitten by the bug of entrepreneurship sitting in Silicon Valley? How did you manage to sit in Cisco for 20 years when Google was being born and then Meta was being created?
Oh,
which is the problem I have. I'm always like, oh my God, what if the next startup is doing something more interesting than what I am, which is why I'm doing what I am.
Yeah, I mean, there are some serious regrets I have. Google was one, Salesforce was one very early on. Believe it or not, ServiceNow was one. So, yeah, for some reason, I felt more connected with the people that I worked with. Because I was always given a challenging role to play, I never felt the urge to leave, or as I put it, it's a regret. I probably would have shaped very differently if I had taken some of those chances.
But this is phenomenal, what you've done with your career by sticking it out.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then what happened after that? So were you a CIO at Cisco?
No, I was a chief data officer, and primarily at that time when I got that role, we had a new chief operations officer, and he wanted data. Like, I remember him, Irving Tan, who's now the CEO at Western Digital. He moved from Singapore, took on as the role of chief operations officer. I was running data in IT, and he came in and said, show me the landscape of data. What should I understand? What should I know? What should I not know? And I really used that opportunity to, oh my God, I'm seeing a familiar face. I looked at that opportunity and I had a conversation with him and said, your job is not to worry about the data platforms. Am I able to provide data at scale? Are there enough dashboards? That's not the problem. I said, the problem is we have multiple business units. We don't do two things well for the company. One, We don't truly deeply understand every product we ship, and there is not much telemetry. And hence we don't understand the customer's network as well as we should. 2, we need some level of standardizing on our big KPIs the company requires to run and operate. We were managing a lot of KPIs. I mean, if you're a company the size of Cisco, the complexity of Cisco, every team has their own KPIs, but we were not driven centrally by KPIs. So that job for me was very meaningful in a way that we started driving true transformation of our product. How do we bring the telemetry to a central location? Part of that was, of course, the technology and the platforms. But the main conversation was, can I have consistency across all business units? So I built very good relationship as a part of that with the BUs, with the BU leaders. And that then helped the company to change how they perceive data, especially a company like Cisco. I mean, data was such an asset, and we didn't treat it like an asset. We didn't even ask for it. We didn't even create it where we could. And so putting that structure together, that framework, was very meaningful for me in my career.
So what were some of those products that you used over time as things evolved? We had Hadoop and all the infrastructure picking up. And so what were the technology changes that were happening?
So at that time, I had an infrastructure team that we created our own 4,000 node cluster of Hadoop. Yeah. Now looking back, of course, I was also there when I dismantled that whole team and really shifted most of the workloads to 2 areas. One was the cloud, went to AWS S3, started managing it there. And 2, we were one of the early adopters of Snowflake. So I brought in Snowflake into the company at that time as part of my data role and started moving our approach was anything that was structured, let's go to Snowflake first. Anything non-structured, let's move it to Amazon S3, and then we'll run our workloads off of that. And then we offered a mishmash of both Power BI and Tableau for people to create their own lens. And that's how I originally started. And then we had, of course, a small data science team at that time. And then we slowly grew that data science team to start working on business problems like lead scoring, opportunity management, etc. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And then now after that, did you join DocuSign? Or?
Yeah, COVID came.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had some of my, mentor kind of say, hey, are you going to rinse, repeat the same? Do you want to kind of try and explore something different? And I knew Dan Springer, the old CEO of DocuSign. So I connected with him. At that time, he offered me a job. I said, hey, this is too small for me. Then after like 7 months or so, he called me and said, hey, I'm going to create a CIO role. I'm going to move these functions together. Does that interest you? So I said, okay. And I'm here.
So how are you adopting all this new AI innovation at DocuSign?
So there is a lot of pressure on CIOs, right? One, you get the pressure from your own business. They come and tell you, we want this, we want that software. And then you also get hit by almost every vendor that is in your landscape. I have about 300 plus software on my ecosystem, okay? All of them have an AI product now. And they all want you to use their product. As a CIO, you don't have the kind of funds to just go and sign checks and say, let me just go and sign up for all. So what we did was we took an approach of, one, what are some of the most common tasks that can be done through AI? And what are some of the software that we would deploy as what we call Birthright software? These are like email collaboration, etc., right? So we said we will take a bunch of them and roll it out to every employee in the company. So we put out Zoom AI, Gemini, GPT, a private version of GPT. We also did Glean, which was like a good search engine for the company. And so we put the tools in the hands of every employee. And then we said, okay, let's see how the adoption is. Let's see how the engagement is on these software. Is it really driving productivity? Now, on some of these, it's really hard to go tell the CFO, yeah, I got 20% productivity gain. You can reduce their investment. It's really hard to say that. So we also in parallel decided that we will do some surgical AI work. And those were, we ran what we call design discovery workshops with every business. So we called the go-to-market function. We assembled them for 2 days. Okay, we heard about their problems. We also, as an IT organization, know some of the problems that we are working on. Then we prioritized how do we streamline, elevate the level of the priority based on some criteria. One is the data available. Is the data in a good space where we can start the AI work? Otherwise, we do AI for the sake of AI and it doesn't yield the results. So we put some selection criteria and prioritized a couple of AI use cases. And one of them that we launched about, I want to say, 8 months ago. It's now live in production. It's a combination of 5 agents that basically run the job of an XDR. So if you know, an XDR does basically lead nurturing. And then usually the funnel goes from something like this to, and then comes to the sales qualified opportunity. But when the funnel is big at the top, the XDRs don't have enough time to take a look at most of the leads. So they just like select only a handful. And the rest of the leads just go into a big bottomless pit. And we wanted the agents to go at that first. So we just designed about 5 agents, and the jobs of the agent is very purpose built. It will do that job, and we wanted it to do the job well. So one is segmenting the audience, segmenting the customers. And so the agent just segmented the customers into buckets. The next one was getting all the infographics for that customers. So we started buying data and we really started collating the data. The third one would draft an email, very personalized email. Initially, we had human in the loop. You know, one of the top main conversation was responsible AI. You have to build trust in the engine. So we initially said, we would draft the email, well, we will drop it in the inbox of the XDRs. So the XDR had to scan it, and we were watching how many emails were being changed by the XDRs. Either we were wrong, and the agent didn't draft it well, or it actually had factually incorrect information in there. So we wanted to make sure that we understood. And when it dropped below 5% or so, we removed the human in the loop. But until then, we had a human in the loop. And then it will batch it and send it. And then we had also a response agent, which would take a look, sometimes draft a response email asking, should we create a demo environment for you? Would you like to try the product? And it could actually send a follow-up email, or it would actually route it internally. That's now live in production. That we saw huge benefits. And that I can actually go to my CFO and say,
So how do you put the cart before the horse? Like, you need budget in order to do something like this.
Yeah.
How do you get the budget to do it? And then you go back and tell them
Yes.
that, hey, we achieved it.
Yes. So, this year I'm asking for a more formal budget. I'm actually ring fencing AI work budget this year. But last year I didn't have that luxury. It hit us fast and it hit us in all directions. So we didn't have enough. We already had a lot of initiatives.
What would the challenge have been if you had not adopted AI last year? Would employees have churned or productivity dropped? What could it?
I think we would just be left out. I don't think we can afford being left out. So one of the things I do typically is I always keep what I call seed investment in my team. I squeeze the engine 10% every year and I put that money aside. And then every year I tell my team, if you come and show a good idea and if it progresses to something, so we just launched something called a quick quote. We have Aptus as our main CPQ engine. It was not really, it was good, but it's kind of an area where we need to double down and invest a little more. Then we said, if we had to redo this with AI in our mindset, would I even build a UI? Do you want the seller to come to a Salesforce form, type all that, gather all this data? If I know 80% are renewal quotes, I know what they bought before. I know what they're using now. Can I give just a text box where they can prompt And based on the prompt, I generate the code. They can change lines, then I generate the code again. It completely made my team rethink how to do coding. Now, you could go and ask, which coding engine today does that in the market? Not many. There's one called Roadrunner, by the way. They demoed it to me and they were like exactly doing that. It was just their whole user experience is a box. It's mostly about prompt engineering, not about UX design, which is very unique. And so now that's how I kind of invest in AI. I squeeze the engine, keep money, and then I do the work with that money. But this year it's more formal.
Yeah, and what about developer tools?
What about it?
Do you allow them to automatically generate code using Perplexity and ChatGPT? And how do you manage quality control? What about all the IP being shipped off when they do that?
See, right now we have rolled out a couple of products to the company. We have rolled out Cursor. We saw more, I want to say engagement or adoption, you could say. Maybe engagement. Because adoption is you are actually generating the code using these tools, right? What I'm also measuring is engagement. How many people are logging in, trying it, etc., right? Copilot, we launched more than a year and a half ago. We didn't see, it's like 20-25%.
Does it mean you you let 25% of your engineers go?
No, not yet.
What happened there? Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
The thing is, we have to really first prove out whether the code that is generated makes sense. If you want some of these products to generate good code, you have to pretty much expose your entire code base, because it has to understand all the nuances of your code. But the way we were rolling all these out early on when things came was we said, okay, we're going to launch it to this team. We're going to launch it to this team. But now we ourselves have taken a step back and said, how do we approach this? One, is it too many tools in the kitchen? Because every developer wants to try something unique. Does standardizing it help the longer run for the company more? In fact, some of the developers even tell me, Shanti, stop throwing more tools at us. Give us only one or two and anchor us towards that one or two. So what we are trying to do now is we have Cloud Code, we have Cursor, and we have Copilot, and we are trying to really rally the engineering teams to tell us the pros and cons, which one works better, what are they seeing with any of these, and then we probably will have some level of convergence, I feel, over a period of time. Right now, we are not forcing or mandating that they use only these.
No, but then if I was a developer, I can easily imagine myself just taking the code base and sticking it in.
No, we have a lot of security guards and controls. They can't. And we don't take that.
They can't access the internet like a bank.
If they do, and if they put something that is very critical IP that is not conforming, you could lose your job.
But how do you track that?
There are a lot of tracking mechanisms. My security team is pretty much all over this. Because you have to also protect your company. At the end of the day, the CISO is in my organization. I'm responsible for the security of the company.
So do you train your engineers on the requirements and then you're rolling this out and then constantly monitoring them?
Yes. So one of the things we do is we are launching what we are calling an AI Academy. Because not everyone in the company is at the same level in terms of mastery, understanding it as a user, understanding it as a developer. So we are actually launching quite a few programs in partnership with a couple of companies. Mm-hmm. And so if you are a developer, we want you to certify yourself in these courses, and we recommend them doing it. Around overall risk and governance, we launched a massive education last year where every employee had to take it's one of those compliance kind of courses. And then all of them had to take it. And then we also informed them that this is what we do. Here is what we track. So that we want to also be transparent. But we have to keep DocuSign safe at the end of the day.
So what would your word of advice be for our founders? They're all sitting there listening to you. How do they get an in into DocuSign to get the CIO of DocuSign to say, yes, I'm going to give you a chance at a BOC?
One is really understand take some time to understand the problem, because a lot of times you are too close to your product, and hence you are going to come and hit us. I imagine my life. I'm listening to 20 of you every day. So you have to resonate in some way to me. And that takes you knowing my area a bit deeper about my product, my ecosystem, some of the challenges I face. So I think putting yourself in the shoes of the customer and understanding them a bit more deeply, I'd say, is probably key. But then and this is something I think most founders come with this mindset, and I really appreciate that. Start small. Start with a use case. Don't come to me with technology. I don't think about technology, and I definitely, cost is important, team, but cost is not everything. I don't drive the conversation with cost. For some software, I will pay provided it meets and beats the business expectations.
So what are some of those top problems that you're looking to have solved, which you don't have answers for yet, where our founders can innovate? Is there anything that's open and right that way?
I think security is a wide area. It has got multiple swim lanes. I think very recently Nikesh Arora had a podcast, and I was listening to that podcast. It's an interesting one if you haven't watched it. And there is a slew of software in each of those swim lanes. And so the complexity of, securing multiple levels in an enterprise around the periphery, the network, the devices, the user as an individual, I think security is a big area, I think, and it's getting a little bit more complex with AI.
I think the challenge with innovation and security, from my perspective, observing founders, is that they don't have the maturity of expertise that comes only when you go sit in a large organization, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs don't get exposed to that. Is there an opportunity there somehow where maybe there is an education that can happen externally for founders to innovate? I have not seen enough. I have not invested in security. That's how few companies there are. Out of 54 companies so far that I've invested in, right? Y Combinator, very rarely. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Because people don't know. They're too young or they're not exposed. So what could be changed? If there's a test bed or somewhere, something of that sort, right? Like Novartis, some of these companies actually offer that.
It's a good question. I'm not 100% sure I have the answer to that. I think one of the areas that I would recommend is something like an RSA, where all these big minds from security come and huddle, and they understand deeply the problems. They also understand what's in the landscape. Part of the problem people like me in the CIO world face is proliferation of tools. It is just, it is crazy. And AI has made that problem even worse. But that said, it is a work in progress, and we have to help streamline, standardize. So I tend to balance between a platform that can solve more than one problem, right? Like, so if you're a founder and if you're coming and saying, I can solve this and this, or here are the 3 things I can solve, which will help in simplifying the landscape, that makes sense. That resonates for people like me. Starting with a small use case and then expanding it helps, because most of us probably will have a BS meter that goes off when you come and say, I'll solve everything. Because we know out of experience, it doesn't happen that way. So starting with a use case and understanding deeply the customer's problem helps.
Wonderful. So switching gears, tell us a book or movie or a person who's inspired you that you would recommend. I think you already did mention podcast. Yeah.
In the right time in my career, you may have all heard about this book. There is a book called What Got You Here Won't Get Me There. I feel that book is even today relevant. A lot of things I learned personally, it came to me a bit late. I read that book much later in my career. I wish I had read it 20 years ago. But really realizing the impact of feedback, internalizing that feedback. Feedback is the insight. So don't go searching for other insights, right? I also feel sometimes people say your strengths that has helped you so far could also become your weakness. Very true. Very true. So the higher you go, it is not about your core competency. And so some of us hold on to that core competency like a little bit of control, and really switching that to influence. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to assemble the smartest person in the room. You want to hire the smartest group in the room. That is a completely different mindset shift. So for me, that book, I would say, was very good. I learned a lot from it. I tried to practice it.
Wonderful. Any last words for our entrepreneurs and executives? Tons of CXOs here too. Yeah.
No, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I hope this was useful, and I'll stay around and connect with some of you. Unfortunately, I can't stay for a longer period of time today, even though Mala had requested that. I have to run back. That said, keep connected. I offer, if you need to reach out to me, send me a ping on LinkedIn. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause for Shanti Iyer. Really an honor to host you. Thank you, Shanti.